Okay, YouTube, what's up? This is your boy Food Junkie. This is a prelude to a video that I'm going to do later on today. And this video is, I think, will be titled, I don't know, something about Iyanla. Because the video I'm doing later on today is about Iyanla Vanzant. Well, let me just say, I just got to finish watching the two-part Iyanla Vanzant Fix My Life. I was raised by a monster. I was born with a monster. Somewhat a monster. Now, I'm coming to you in this video, basically just to let you know that I knew about Iyanla Vanzant years ago, before Fix My Life, before Oprah. I was into self-help and things of that nature. And I have a story related to Iyanla Vanzant and what it is that drew me to her. Anyone knew Iyanla Vanzant when she wrote her first book, In the Meantime? Well, I read that book. And reading that book, I got fired from a job. Well, you heard about, I don't know if I was fired or what happened, but the short story is I no longer work there anymore at the company I was at when I was reading the book. And this is the story right here. Well, I worked for an airline at the airport for about 2.5 years before I read that book. But while reading that book, I was in the process of going through the training to become a flight attendant with that airline. Yes, I'm 6'3", 200 pounds. So it was a major airline, so the planes I had to fly in was, pretty big planes, major airline. The story goes like this. I was going through flight attendant training, or the flight attendant training program, doing extremely well because, like I said, I worked for the company for about 2.5 years prior to going through the training to be a flight attendant. About a week before I was slated to graduate from the program, we had to do what was called in-flights. Basically, that is when you catch the plane to a nearby city and basically you go over and review and look at and observe all the jobs or all the things you need to do as a flight attendant. Well, mind you, from the training center to the airport itself, I just got to finish reading Iyanla Vanzant's book the night before and was really intrigued by it. And the part that intrigued me the most is when she said, when you are born, you marinate in the embryonic fluid of your mother. So that helps shapes and grooms you to the person that you are going to be or that you are to become. That intrigued me because it made sense to me. And I'm talking about this. I'm coming to you in this video because she said something similar to that in the episode that I'm going to talk about later on this evening. So, yeah, that really intrigued me. That the person that you are today is because you was marinating in the embryonic fluid of your mother. So whatever feelings, emotions that she was going through and feeling at that time help make up who you are to this day. So true, think about that. If you marinate chicken in a marinade, the chicken come out tasting like the marinade that you marinated in, for however long you marinated it in. So it just made complete sense to me. So on the way to the airport, I was actually discussing that with people on the transportation that was also in the class with me. So this was years ago before I even wrote my book. So it was interesting to me. So I pulled out the book while other people was pulling out magazines and newspapers and stuff like that to read. I pulled up the book to show people what I saw it at, what I read it at, and how I interpreted things like that. The book is called In the Meantime by Iyanla Vanzant. So the instructor, him and I didn't have a good relationship. One was because I knew him when I worked for the company, because he was a flight attendant prior. So we would run into each other, you know, on the concourse and things like that while I was working for the company. And he made it to the flight instructor, the in-flight instructor. So we didn't really clash or anything. I just knew he didn't like me, and I didn't care for him because his pompous attitude. So he asked me, what am I reading? I got up to show it to him, whatever. He told me to sit down and pass it forward. You know, I looked like, okay, whatever. I did what he asked me to do, you know, because I don't want no trouble, I want no static. Then he looked at it, looked it over, whatever, and then passed it through everybody else back to me. I didn't think anything of it. So when we finally got to the airport, he pulled me aside once we got off the transportation and was like, well, you know you're going to be written up when we get back to the facility, right? I'm like, for what? He's like, well, because you're reading sanctioned material on a business trip. And so I asked him, what's the difference between me reading a book and people reading magazines and newspapers? Because I don't understand. He said something smart, whatever, you know. I ignored it. Said, okay, cool, no problem. So when we got to the concourse and waited for our flight to be boarded so we can observe what's going on this flight, I started to pen a response letter, you know, because of course I always have paper and pencil with me, or pen and paper with me, I should say, to take notes about my experiences, whatever. So I'm taking notes. I am writing up my response letter to the write-up that I am expected to get back to the training center. So I penned like a 3-page response letter based on telling them what happened and my response to it and how I think it's unfair and things like that. So when we get on the plane, it was like a letterhead leaf type thing where you can pull the paper into the back and then write in the front. So I pulled the papers that I wrote my response letter on to the back and started taking notes about what's going on the flight, so I can observe it. You know, expecting to get written up. Mind you, the rules was you were supposed to have able to get 3 write-ups or occurrences before you are released from the program. This would be my first one. I understand it, but you know, I was cool with that because I knew I only had one in my file and I was going to be done in a week anyway and pass with flying colors. So he walks by looking at what I'm doing. I get up and use the restroom. I guess he looked at my pad where I was writing on and saw that I penned a letter to as a response to the write-up that I was getting when we got back to the facility. So the flight went without a hitch. Everything was good. I took my notes. I asked the questions, you know, to let you know I'm interested in what's going on. Trying to make sure I stayed engaged with the flight attendants that was actually on the flight itself. And when we got back to the facility, I just said, okay, I'm ready for my write-up now, you know. Are we going to do this right now? He was like, well, no, don't worry about it. Well, it was a misunderstanding. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. You know, everything's fine. So I went home that evening after the training session was over for the day, and everything was fine. So I thought. The next day, I get to the facility early, well, it's not, you know, to get myself situated, get myself integrated to the situation that I'm in, and I got pulled out of class, pulled into the director's office, And I'm like, okay, I'm confused what's going on because I thought everything was fine, but whatever. I still had my write-up response with me. And with that write-up response, I brought that with me to the director's office. And I was told that I was being released from the program for not following directions and being rude to the instructor. I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on. I explained, actually the director asked me what happened yesterday. And I told him what happened, and he said, well, that's not what I was told. I was told that you was being rude and you was being disrespectful and you wasn't following directions. I'm like, no, I'm confused about what's going on. Mind you, the instructor's right there as well. So I turned to him and asked, what are you talking about? When I asked you yesterday evening, for my write-up, you said, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. It was a misunderstanding. He was like, well, no, that's not what I said. I said we would handle it tomorrow. I'm like, no. You specifically said, don't worry about it. It was a misunderstanding. And to all due respect, when I asked you for my write-up, because I was going to attach this paper to it, or this letter to it as a response, you said, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. You're being argumentative right now. No, I'm stating what happened. So needless to say, the director was like, well, he feels uncomfortable with putting you through and allowing you to complete the program because he felt that you was being disrespectful toward him. Mind you, that wasn't the case. I wasn't disrespectful. I know I can be disrespectful at times, but I wasn't at that moment. But also that day, I did let it be known that I wouldn't want to be flying all the time. I would do everything I can to be an instructor, a flight instructor, an in-flight instructor. So I guess he thought I wanted his job. I didn't want his job. I wanted a job within that training group type of thing. So needless to say, I was released from the program. And on the way home from that program, being kind of upset and confused about what's really going on, like I don't know what's going on, I totaled the car that I had. I was fine. I walked away from it, of course. But the car I had was totaled. Flipped over twice, hit a medium, ran into a pole. The pole crashed down and pretty much folded the car in half. But by the grace of God, I walked away from the accident. See, God watch out for me. God makes sure that I am not hurt, even when things happen to me that doesn't supposed to happen. That's how I know I didn't do anything wrong, because God was like, well, don't worry about it. This happened to you. You'll be okay. But when I got home, I penned a 7-page letter talking about my entire experience in the program. Mind you, I did that because we had something called a mediation. As those of you who know, works for a big company. Companies have mediations and things like that. So I wrote that as a response for the mediation. When I called my representative, I asked, when can I start back my old job? Or can I start back my old job? Since I didn't finish the training program. Well, come to find out, they had to release me from my old job altogether in order for me to start training to become a flight attendant. So needless to say, like I said, I didn't know if I got fired or if I was released. So all I know is that I wasn't working there anymore. Upset by the fact that I didn't work there anymore got me to start journaling and writing, because that's what Iyanla Vanzant was saying in her book In the Meantime. So like I said, Iyanla Vanzant, you got me fired, girl. I'm playing. No, you didn't. It was a blessing in disguise. I moved on to bigger, better things. But out of that experience of going back and forth with my representative and with this company, I actually, through my journaling, wrote a book called Thoughts of a Man, Prayers, Poems, and Words Inspired by Life. And the first thing I wrote was called Questions and Answers. basically about, you know, when people ask you questions and you tell them the truth, or they tell you what you want to hear. Loosely based on what I've experienced previously, what I just told you about. But the whole book is about that. So while I was released from that position that I really enjoyed, out of that, I tapped into my artistic spirit and my artistic soul. And ever since then, I've been doing something in the arts, you know what I'm saying, nonstop. The book I wrote was self-published. I self-published it, of course. It was pretty good, did pretty well. From there, the poetry book, whatever the book I shot, the writing, whatever the book is considered, I moved on to fashion, moved on to painting, art, designing, you know, saying things like that. Interiors, exteriors, I did interior design as well, landscape, architecture, things like that. So I've always been doing something in the artistic field. So, Iyanla, not only did you help fix my life, you helped focus my life. So with that, I want to say thank you. Now, I also needed a minute to compose myself, because during the show, it had me all choked up. You know what I'm saying? Feeling for this family, feeling for these kids, and feeling for the mom as well. I thought watching the first episode of it, I was not going to feel for the mom. But watching it and listening to her story, I felt for her as well. The whole family I just felt for. Something just touched me all up in my heart, all in this area right here. You know what I'm saying? All up and through here. All this right here was touched. So I'm trying to compose myself so I won't be all blubbering and crying when I watch the show and talk about the show. Because I think I'm going to do a watch it and talk about it at the same time type of situation on this, for this show, both parts. It's only like probably an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So yeah, I think we'll do that. But yeah, that's a story about how Iyanla Vanzant focused my life. As I always say, love yourself, love someone else, respect yourself, respect someone else. Until next time, have a great day.